Memphis Diner, 2:13 p.m., March 1957. Elvis Presley holds back a man in a denim shirt, Jack Woodrow, who's lunging at the woman in the booth. Gladys Presley sits frozen, shocked, as her son blocks the attack. Witnesses would later say Woodrow had been drinking since morning, got loud when he recognized Elvis's mother sitting alone, and said something that made Elvis appear out of nowhere. What nobody saw: Elvis had been in the parking lot, about to leave, when he heard his mother's name shouted across the diner. He was inside in seconds. The punch came after, one hit that dropped Woodrow cold. But this moment, captured in shocked silence, is what changed everything. Elvis holding back violence while wearing his mother's gold wedding ring on a chain around his neck. 3 hours later, Woodrow would wake up in Baptist Hospital. 3 days later, Elvis would nearly kill him for real. The insult in this diner? That was just the beginning. By late August 1958, Elvis Presley was supposed to be untouchable, the biggest star on the planet. Fresh out of the army, box office gold, girls screaming his name from Tokyo to Tennessee. But on August 14, 1958, Gladys Presley died of a heart attack at 46 years old. The public saw Elvis collapse at her funeral, sobbing over the casket. What they didn't see was what came after. Elvis shut down recording sessions for weeks, a documented fact that cost RCA thousands. He stopped returning calls. Colonel Parker watched his golden goose spiral into something he couldn't control. And Elvis started wearing something new, his mother's gold wedding ring on a chain around his neck, tucked under his shirt. He touched it constantly, obsessively, like a man checking for a pulse that wasn't there anymore. September 1958, downtown Memphis. While the world thought Elvis was grieving privately at Graceland, he started slipping into dive bars after midnight. Not the glamorous spots where celebrities hung out, the dark corners where locals drank cheap whiskey and nobody asked questions. Bar owner Sal Marconi noticed him first. He'd come in alone, sit in the back, order bourbon, and just stare at nothing, Marconi later told police. Elvis wore sunglasses indoors, a jacket, despite the heat, and that gold chain always visible when he leaned forward. Most locals recognized him but kept their distance out of respect. Elvis had grown up in Memphis. These were his people. They understood grief. But Sal noticed something else. Elvis had an edge now, a coiled tension that hadn't been there before. He'd leave quickly if anyone got too loud or too close. The pattern repeated for weeks. Quiet entrance, bourbon, silence, quick exit. Then, Jack Woodrow started showing up to the same bar. Jack Woodrow was a loud, thick-necked construction worker who talked too much when he drank. Not mean, exactly, just thoughtless. The kind of guy who thought volume equaled personality. By late September, Woodrow was a regular at Sal's bar, always holding court with the same group of buddies, always one drink past appropriate. September 26, 1958. Around 11 p.m., Elvis walked in. Woodrow was already drunk, showing off, telling stories nobody believed. When he spotted Elvis in the corner booth, something shifted in his face. Recognition. Then something uglier. Opportunity. Woodrow started making comments, loud enough to hear, quiet enough to deny. "Look who it is, Memphis royalty." Elvis ignored him, fingers instinctively moving to the gold chain under his shirt. Woodrow kept going. "Hey, Elvis, you gonna sing us something? Or are you too busy crying?" Elvis's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. That's when Woodrow made his fatal mistake. He brought up Gladys. The exact words vary depending on who you ask. Some witnesses claim Woodrow called Gladys a trashy hillbilly who raised a sissy. Others say it was worse. What everyone agrees on? The bar went silent. Elvis didn't yell, didn't threaten. He just stood up, slowly, and walked toward Woodrow's table. Woodrow was still grinning, thinking he was funny, when Elvis's first punch shattered his jaw. You could hear the bone crack across the bar. Woodrow dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Elvis didn't stop. He kept hitting him, methodical, precise, terrifying. Other patrons tried to pull Elvis off, but he was somewhere else entirely, somewhere past rage into something colder. The gold chain snapped during the struggle, and the ring skittered across the floor, smeared with blood. Police arrived within 4 minutes. Woodrow was unconscious, face unrecognizable. Elvis stood over him, breathing hard, knuckles destroyed. He didn't resist arrest. He just stared at the broken chain on the floor. Colonel Tom Parker got the call at 3 a.m. By 3:45, he was at the Memphis police station, already working. Parker understood something crucial. Elvis wasn't just a client. He was a money machine worth millions. This couldn't become public. Hospital reports came in fast. Woodrow had a shattered jaw that required wiring, 3 broken ribs, a collapsed lung, and internal bleeding. Doctors estimated 3 weeks minimum in the hospital, possibly longer. Parker started making calls. First to the bar owner, how much to forget details. Then to witnesses, how much to suddenly remember Woodrow swung first. Memphis police were torn. On one hand, clear assault, multiple witnesses, a victim in critical condition. On the other, Elvis Presley, local hero, grieving son, recently discharged from serving his country. Parker worked the angles. Woodrow wasn't exactly sympathetic, drunk, loud, insulting a dead woman. Meanwhile, Elvis sat in the holding cell, silent, staring at the broken gold chain in his palm. He wouldn't explain, wouldn't defend himself, just silence. By dawn, conflicting stories started emerging. The bar owner's memory suddenly got fuzzy about who threw the first punch. 2 witnesses now claimed Woodrow had been aggressive toward Elvis first. Another swore he'd seen Woodrow reach for something in his pocket, maybe a knife, maybe nothing. Parker's money was working. But other witnesses held firm. It wasn't rage, one woman told investigators. It was execution, like he was working through a list in his head. Elvis's defense team started building their narrative. Grieving son, insulted mother, momentary lapse, regrettable but understandable. Woodrow's family was demanding full prosecution. The Memphis District Attorney's Office was getting pressure from both sides. Media was starting to sniff around. Elvis Presley questioned in bar altercation was the early headline, carefully vague. Parker's biggest fear was the truth getting out, that Elvis had methodically beaten a man nearly to death. That wasn't the king of rock and roll. That was something darker, something that couldn't be packaged and sold. 3 days after the incident, something unexpected happened. Elvis visited the hospital. Not publicly, Parker would have had a heart attack. But according to staff who were there, Elvis walked into Baptist Hospital around 2 a.m., wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, and asked to see Jack Woodrow's room. He stood outside the door for nearly 10 minutes, just staring through the window at Woodrow's wired jaw and bandaged torso. A nurse asked if he wanted to go in. Elvis shook his head. "I just needed to see," he said. Then he left. When Woodrow regained consciousness and learned Elvis had been there, he wrote a note to his lawyer. His jaw was wired shut, demanding Elvis be prosecuted to the fullest extent. The note described the insult in detail. Gladys Presley, poor white trash, raised a pretty boy who played guitar. Crude, cruel, designed to hurt. Elvis's friends confirmed what everyone suspected. Gladys was the one subject you never touched. Elvis worshipped her publicly, called her his best girl, his everything. But this response? This went beyond defense. This was release. October 1958. The investigation dragged on. Woodrow was improving, but slowly. Permanent damage was likely. Jaw reconstruction, hearing loss in one ear from where his head hit the floor. Elvis faced potential assault charges that could mean jail time. Recording contracts were in jeopardy. Movie deals on hold. Parker worked around the clock, orchestrating settlement negotiations while simultaneously preparing for trial if necessary. Elvis stayed at Graceland, drinking more, seeing fewer people. He'd had the gold chain repaired and wore it constantly now, the ring visible outside his shirt instead of hidden. Friends noticed the change. Less trusting, quicker to anger. Isolated even among people who loved him. The ring became an obsession. He'd touch it mid-conversation, checking it was still there. At night, he'd take it off and study the engraving by lamplight. G.L.P. Gladys Love Presley. The real question wasn't legal. Parker could make legal problems disappear with enough money. The real question was psychological. What happens when a man realizes he's capable of killing someone with his bare hands? And worse, that he'd felt nothing while doing it. Behind closed doors in mid-October, Parker brokered the deal. Woodrow's family was offered a substantial sum. Accounts vary, but most sources suggest between $50,000 and $75,000, a fortune in 1958. Elvis would pay all medical bills, ongoing treatment, and compensation for trauma and lost wages. The condition: Woodrow signed a non-disclosure agreement and dropped all charges. Woodrow's lawyer pushed back initially. This was assault, possibly attempted murder. But the family was working class. Woodrow's medical bills were already crushing them, and the truth was, Woodrow had insulted a dead woman in a bar. Public sympathy wasn't guaranteed. By late October, the deal was done. Memphis police cited insufficient evidence to prosecute and closed the case. Woodrow was discharged from Baptist Hospital after 22 days. The public never learned the full details. A few small mentions in Memphis papers. Elvis Presley involved in bar misunderstanding, matter resolved privately. And that was it. Parker's version became official. A drunk insulted Elvis's recently deceased mother. Elvis reacted emotionally. Everyone moved on. The money had purchased silence. And silence, in 1958, was still buyable. But something had broken that couldn't be repaired with money. By November 1958, Elvis returned to public life. Recording sessions, appearances, the machinery of fame cranking back up. On the surface, everything looked normal. The king was back. But people close to Elvis noticed the transformation. He was quicker to anger, slower to trust. The ring never left his body, worn outside his shirt now, like armor or a warning. Woodrow vanished from Memphis. The settlement included a strongly encouraged suggestion that he relocate. He moved to Texas with the money and was never heard from publicly again. Parker told reporters who asked that the whole thing had been blown out of proportion, a misunderstanding amplified by grief. The official story? Elvis, devastated by his mother's death, overreacted to an insult. Regrettable, but understandable. The truth? Elvis had nearly killed a man with his bare hands in a methodical, cold assault that had nothing to do with defending honor and everything to do with having a target for rage he couldn't control. And now he knew what he was capable of. That knowledge changed him. Between 1959 and 1960, Elvis's career rebounded. Hit records, movies, sold-out shows. The public saw the king of rock and roll at his peak, but his inner circle saw something else. Multiple incidents of Elvis threatening people, never in public, always behind closed doors. A photographer who got too close. A studio executive who questioned his judgment. A musician who showed up late. The threats were specific, detailed, physical. Parker worked harder than ever to contain him, keeping security close, managing access, ensuring Elvis's volatility never reached the press. The gold ring became part of Elvis's stage persona, visible during performances, glinting under lights, the audience never knowing what it meant. To fans, it was a touching tribute to his mother. To Elvis, it was something else. A reminder, a warning to himself. Every time he touched it, he felt the weight of that September night, the sound of breaking bone, the cold precision of his own hands. Fame protected him from legal consequences, but it couldn't protect him from knowing what he'd done, or from wondering what else he might be capable of. Jack Woodrow lived the rest of his life in relative obscurity. He settled in Dallas, worked construction when his jaw allowed it, never married. Friends in Texas knew him as a quiet guy with a drinking problem and a face that looked like it had been through a windshield. He never spoke publicly about Elvis Presley. The NDA held, even after Elvis died in 1977, Woodrow's family maintained silence. Some speculated Woodrow had been paid additionally over the years to ensure continued discretion. Others believed simple fear kept him quiet. Woodrow died in 1974 of cirrhosis, 3 years before Elvis. His obituary in the Dallas paper was 4 lines. No mention of Memphis. No mention of September 1958. No mention of the night he said the wrong thing to the wrong person. Was justice served? The question depends on perspective. Woodrow had been cruel, thoughtless, insulting a dead woman to impress his buddies. Did that deserve weeks in a hospital and permanent physical damage? Did money make it right? The legal system never answered because the legal system never got the chance. Parker had made sure of that. August 16th, 1977. Elvis Presley died at Graceland, age 42. When they prepared his body for burial, the gold ring was still there, on a chain around his neck, where it had been for 19 years. His family wanted him buried with it, the same ring that had been covered in Jack Woodrow's blood in 1958. The same ring Elvis touched obsessively during performances, interviews, private moments. What started as love, a son honoring his mother, became something heavier, a prison. A constant reminder of the night Elvis discovered he could hurt someone badly and feel nothing while doing it. Fame and money had protected him from legal consequences. Colonel Parker's machine had rewritten the story, but Elvis lived the rest of his life knowing the truth. The gold ring buried with him wasn't just a tribute to Gladys, it was evidence. Of devotion, yes, but also of violence, isolation, and the cost of being protected from your own actions. Some chains you wear by choice, others wear you. The ring stayed with Elvis until the end. The question is, who was really imprisoned?